The next few days were spent scouring the city for a location that was affordable and big enough to house their dream. They drove around for hours, checking out rundown buildings, back alleys, and forgotten corners of the city. Most were either too expensive, too small, or just plain unsuitable. But they didn't give up. Finally, on the 5th day, Carmen called them to a quiet side street on the edge of town. "It's not much," she said when they arrived, standing in front of an old abandoned garage with a faded sign that read, "Johnson's Tires." The building was rough, chipped paint, cracked windows, weeds growing through the cracked pavement. But it had potential. "I can see it," Darnell said, trying to envision what it could be. A fresh coat of paint, some new equipment, it could work. Javier ran his hand along the doorframe. "It's going to need a lot of elbow grease, but I think we can make it happen," he agreed. They pooled together their savings, maxed out their credit cards, and took a loan from a local credit union willing to give them a shot. Every penny went into securing the lease and purchasing the most essential tools they needed to start. The first few weeks were a whirlwind of cleaning, fixing, and renovating. They spent long hours scrubbing floors, patching holes, and painting walls, transforming the dusty old garage into a functional workspace. Exhausted but undeterred, they worked late into the night, driven by the vision of what Davis Auto Repair could become. But it wasn't just the physical labor that weighed on them. Bills began piling up before they even opened the doors. They needed customers, but they had no reputation, no advertising budget, and no time to waste. Darnell felt the pressure mounting. He knew they were on a tightrope with no safety net. He decided to take a risk and called in a favor from a longtime customer from Tom's, Mr. Simmons, an elderly gentleman with a collection of vintage cars. "We're opening our own shop," Darnell explained. "I know it's a lot to ask, but if you'd bring your cars to us, it would mean a lot." Mr. Simmons paused for a moment, then chuckled softly. "You've always done right by me, Darnell. I'll bring my old Chevy by tomorrow." It was a small victory, but it felt like a lifeline. The next day, Mr. Simmons showed up, and they got to work. They treated his car like it was a high-profile project, meticulous attention, extra care, and friendly service. They poured everything they had into that first job, knowing that word of mouth was their best chance to build a reputation. And slowly, it worked. Mr. Simmons told his friends, and they told theirs. A few more cars trickled in, and soon, the garage started to look like a real auto repair shop. They faced setbacks, of course, equipment failures, slow weeks with hardly any customers, and days when they barely made enough to cover their expenses. But each time they hit a wall, they found a way around it. They leaned on each other, kept pushing, kept believing. One day, as Darnell stood outside the shop, looking up at the freshly painted sign that read, "Davis Auto Repair," he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. He knew they had a long way to go, but they had come this far together, and there was no turning back. With every passing day, their reputation grew, not just for their skills, but for the respect and fairness with which they treated every customer. And as they built their business, they built something more, a place where they were valued, a place they could finally call their own. Davis Auto Repair was starting to come alive, and the energy was electric. The old dingy garage was now a hub of activity, a mix of clanging metal, whirring drills, and the smell of fresh paint mingling with motor oil. The walls were lined with tools, and a few classic car posters Carmen had found at a flea market added a touch of personality. Customers trickled in, and word of mouth was spreading. Things were looking up, but the challenges were far from over. It started with the first big job they landed, a transmission rebuild for a local delivery company with a fleet of aging vans. It was a huge opportunity, not just for the money, but for the exposure. If they pulled it off, they could secure a long-term contract that would provide the steady income they desperately needed. Darnell, Javier, Carmen, Reggie, and Luis dove in, determined to prove themselves. But almost immediately they ran into problems. The parts supplier, A small local distributor they had decided to support failed to deliver on time. Days went by without the crucial components they needed, and the delivery company's manager was getting impatient. Darnell spent hours on the phone, chasing the supplier, trying to negotiate and plead, but he was getting nowhere. "We can't wait forever," the manager warned, his tone sharp over the phone. "I've got vans sitting idle, and I can't afford that. If you can't deliver, I'll have to take my business elsewhere." Darnell felt a cold sweat on his forehead. He hung up and turned to the others. "We need a backup plan," he said, trying to stay calm. Reggie nodded. "I've got a cousin who works for a bigger supplier. They might be able to get us what we need, but it's going to cost more." "We don't have a choice," Carmen replied. "If we lose this job, we might not get another chance like it." They decided to go with the new supplier. It cost them more than they'd budgeted, but at least they got the parts. Darnell called the delivery company's manager, promising the work would be done on time. The pressure was on. They worked through the night, taking turns on shifts, their hands greasy, eyes red from lack of sleep. At last, they finished the job. Darnell called the manager to pick up the vans. When the manager arrived, he inspected each vehicle carefully, taking his time, his face giving nothing away. Darnell's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for the verdict. Finally, the manager looked up and gave a slight nod. "Solid work," he said, handing over the check. "I'll keep you in mind for future jobs." It wasn't a glowing endorsement, but it was enough. The team let out a collective sigh of relief. They had pulled it off, just barely, but they had done it. That night, they celebrated with a modest barbecue in the back lot of the shop, eating burgers and toasting with sodas. They laughed, talked about their dreams for the shop, and for a moment, it felt like they were invincible. But the next day brought another challenge. A letter arrived from the city inspector's office. Darnell opened it and quickly felt his stomach drop. It was a notice about a compliance issue. Apparently, they needed a new permit for hazardous materials storage. "That's going to set us back at least a couple of grand," Reggie muttered, looking over Darnell's shoulder. "We don't have that kind of money," Luis groaned. Darnell sighed. "We've got to figure it out. Maybe we can appeal, get an extension." Carmen chimed in. "I'll handle it. I've dealt with City Hall before. They don't make it easy, but if we show them we're willing to comply, they might cut us some slack." The next day, Carmen headed to the city office. She sat through hours of waiting, bouncing between departments, filling out forms, and trying to make their case. When she finally got to speak to someone who could help, they barely listened, citing regulations and red tape. "Look, I understand the rules," Carmen said, her voice steady but firm. "But we're a new business. We're trying to do things right. We just need a bit more time." The clerk gave a curt nod. "You have 2 weeks to get it sorted, or you'll face penalties," she replied, barely looking up from her computer. Carmen returned to the shop, exhausted, but not defeated. "We've got 2 weeks to come up with the money," she said. "It's not much time, but it's something." Darnell rubbed his temples. "All right then," he said. "We'll have to hustle for more work. No other way around it." They started taking on every job they could. Oil changes, brake repairs, even basic tire rotations. Every dollar counted. The team worked tirelessly, sacrificing sleep, evenings, and weekends. They handed out flyers, put up ads online, and even knocked on doors in the neighborhood. Yet, the pressure continued to mount. Bills were piling up, and the 2-week deadline loomed large. Darnell began to feel the weight of his decision to leave Tom's more heavily than ever. He could see the strain on everyone's faces, the dark circles under their eyes, the forced smiles. One evening, as they were closing up, Reggie spoke up. "Darnell, do you ever think we bit off more than we could chew?" Darnell looked at him, feeling the exhaustion in his bones. "Every damn day," he admitted. "But I also know this. We're fighting for something bigger than just a paycheck. We're fighting for respect, for fairness. I don't regret that, no matter how hard it gets." The others nodded, and in that shared moment of doubt, they found a renewed sense of purpose. They had each other, and they had a dream worth fighting for. As Darnell locked up the shop that night, he glanced back at the faded sign and whispered under his breath, "We'll make it. Somehow, we'll make it." The days that followed felt like a marathon, with no end in sight. Darnell and the team pushed themselves harder than ever, trying to scrape together every cent they could to meet the city's deadline. The pace was relentless, late nights, early mornings, and no breaks. But the customers were coming in, little by little, and the work was steady. The atmosphere in the shop was tense, but hopeful. One afternoon, as Darnell was under the hood of a rusty old pickup, he heard Carmen calling out from the front desk, "Darnell! There's someone here to see you!" Wiping his hands on a rag, he made his way to the front, expecting another customer. Instead, he found himself face to face with Greg, the owner of Greg's Auto Repair, his former boss. Greg's expression was hard to read, a mix of frustration and what seemed like reluctant admiration. "Hey, Darnell," Greg began, his tone surprisingly calm. "I heard you and the crew set up your own shop." Darnell raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, we did. What brings you here, Greg?" Greg glanced around, noticing the organized chaos of the small shop, the cars on lifts, and the steady stream of customers. "Looks like you're doing all right," he said, almost grudgingly. Darnell shrugged. "We're getting by. What do you want, Greg?" Greg hesitated, then finally spoke. "I'm here to make an offer. You know things haven't been the same since you all left. Business has been slow. I was thinking, if you and the others came back, I could offer you a better deal. A raise. We could all move past this and get back to business." Darnell felt a flash of anger, but he kept his expression neutral. "Why now, Greg? You didn't care when we walked out." Greg sighed, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice. "Look, I was wrong, okay? But we've all got to make a living, and we were good together. I'm offering a chance to fix things. Think about it. Steady pay, no more scrambling for parts, no more dealing with city permits or inspectors breathing down your neck." For a moment, Darnell considered the offer. The idea of a stable paycheck, of not having to fight for every dollar, was tempting. He glanced back at the shop where Carmen, Javier, and Luis were hard at work, sweat on their brows but determination in their eyes. They had come so far together. Could he really turn back now? "No, Greg," Darnell said firmly, shaking his head. "We've built something here, something that's ours. We're not interested in going back to the way things were." Greg's face darkened. "You're making a mistake, Darnell. You'll see. This is a hard business, and it's only going to get harder." "Maybe," Darnell replied, "but at least we'll be in charge of our own destiny. That's worth more than any paycheck you could offer." Greg scoffed and turned to leave. "Suit yourself," he muttered over his shoulder, "but don't come crying to me when it all falls apart." Darnell watched Greg walk out, his heart pounding. He knew they had just turned down their easiest path to security, but he also knew it wasn't the right path for them. The moment Greg left, the doubts crept back in, the constant fear of failure, the worry that he was dragging everyone else down with him. But he pushed those thoughts aside. They were committed to this, and they weren't turning back now. That evening, Darnell gathered the team together in the small break room. "Greg came by today," he began. "Offered us a chance to go back with a raise." Everyone fell silent. The air grew heavy with unspoken questions. Carmen broke the tension. "And you told him no, right?" "Of course I did," Darnell answered. "But I want to make sure everyone is on the same page. Things are tough now, but they might get even tougher. If anyone wants out, no one's going to hold it against you." Javier chuckled softly. "Out? We just started. Besides, I've never been good at quitting." Luis nodded. "I'd rather struggle here than go back to being treated like dirt," he added. We're in this together, right? Carmen smiled. Damn right we are. Greg didn't respect us then, and he won't respect us now. We've got something good here, something that's ours. Reggie leaned back, crossing his arms with a satisfied grin. Sounds like we're all in agreement then. We're sticking with Davis Auto Repair. Darnell felt a wave of gratitude and relief. All right then, he said. We keep pushing, keep working, and prove that we can do this. For ourselves and for each other. The next day, they were back at it. The city permit deadline was fast approaching, and every minute counted. They had a list of jobs lined up, from brake repairs to engine diagnostics, and every customer who walked through the door was treated like gold. Just when things seemed to be looking up, another problem hit. The compressor broke down. Without it, they couldn't run the air tools, and every job would take twice as long. Darnell tried to stay calm as he fiddled with the machine, sweat dripping down his face. We can't afford a new one, Carmen muttered, looking over his shoulder. I know, Darnell replied, frustration building in his voice. But we've got to figure something out. We can't afford to lose time or customers. They decided to rent a compressor for a week, another cost they couldn't really afford, but a necessary one. And then a bit of good news arrived, a glowing review in the local paper, written by one of their first customers, praising their honesty, skill, and fair prices. That afternoon, the phone started ringing off the hook. People were calling, mentioning the article, wanting to schedule repairs, inspections, and more. For the first time in weeks, there was a flicker of hope. They worked tirelessly through the weekend, knowing that every job completed brought them closer to the goal. And then, finally, on the very last day of their 2-week extension, they had enough. They scraped together the last few dollars they needed, paid for the permit, and avoided the penalties. As Darnell handed over the check to the city clerk, he felt a surge of relief. They had made it, just barely, but they had made it. That night, as they closed up shop, Darnell turned to the team. We did it, he said, a broad grin breaking across his face. We survived another battle, but we're not done yet. There are going to be more challenges, more setbacks, but as long as we stick together, there's nothing we can't handle. The team cheered, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Darnell knew the road ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time in a while, he felt confident they were on the right path. Together, they were stronger than they had ever been, and Davis Auto Repair was just getting started. The days began to blur together as the team at Davis Auto Repair found themselves busier than ever. The shop had gone from struggling to stay afloat to a steady stream of customers who trusted them with their cars. Darnell was starting to feel a shift in the air. People were talking about them, and the word was spreading. Their reputation was beginning to grow. One afternoon, a local reporter named Denise Wilkins stopped by. She was a sharp-eyed woman with a friendly smile and a notebook in hand. I've heard some great things about your shop, she said to Darnell as she walked in. Mind if I do a piece on you all for the local news? Darnell felt a surge of pride. We'd love that, he replied, trying to keep his excitement in check. He knew how much a little positive publicity could help them. What do you want to know? Denise smiled. Everything. How you got started, what makes you different, and what challenges you faced. People love a good underdog story. They sat down at the small break table, the rest of the team joining them. Denise listened attentively as Darnell shared the story of how they left Greg's auto repair and started from scratch. Carmen added details about their struggle to get the shop up and running, while Javier and Luis talked about the hard work they put into every car they repaired. Denise's pen flew across her notebook. And what do you think sets you apart? She asked. Darnell leaned forward, his voice filled with conviction. We're not just another auto repair shop, he said. We care about our customers, really care. We take the time to explain what's going on with their cars, to make sure they understand every repair. And we're fair. We don't charge people more just because we can. We want to build a business based on respect and trust. Javier nodded. And we're a family. Not just us working here, but everyone who walks through that door. We treat people like they matter because they do. Denise smiled again, clearly impressed. This is exactly what people love to hear, she said. A business with heart. I think this story is going to resonate with a lot of folks. The following week, the article was published in the local newspaper and posted online. The headline read, Davis Auto Repair, the little garage with a big heart. The story painted them in a positive light, highlighting their journey, their commitment to fairness, and their dedication to the community. Almost overnight, the shop saw a surge of new customers. People from all over town came in, mentioning the article, curious to meet the team and see if the hype was real. The phone rang non-stop, and the schedule was booked solid for weeks. But with the newfound popularity came new challenges. The small shop was bursting at the seams. They were running out of space for cars, and their old equipment was being pushed to its limits. The team found themselves stretched thin, working longer hours than ever. Tired but energized by the momentum, they pressed on, determined not to let this opportunity slip away. One evening, after another long day, Carmen pulled Darnell aside. We're growing too fast, she said. We can't keep this up much longer without more space and better tools. Darnell nodded, wiping his hands on his coveralls. I know, he replied, but we can't afford to move to a bigger place right now. Carmen thought for a moment, then said, What if we took out a loan? I know it's risky, but if we keep growing at this rate, we could pay it back. Darnell hesitated. They had just barely gotten out of the hole from their last financial hurdle. But Carmen had a point. They needed to expand, or they would risk losing the customers they had worked so hard to win over. I don't know, Darnell said finally. Let's talk to the others and see what they think. That night, they gathered in the break room again, the air buzzing with nervous energy. We're doing well, Darnell began. But Carmen's right. We need more space and better equipment if we're going to keep up with this demand. She thinks we should take out a loan to expand. I want to know what you all think. Reggie, always the cautious one, spoke first. It's a big risk. Loans can bury you if you're not careful. But I see the need. If we keep turning customers away, we're going to get a reputation for that instead. Luis nodded. I'm with Reggie. I don't like the idea of going into debt, but it's better than turning away work. We've got momentum right now. We can't afford to slow down. Javier chimed in. I say we go for it. We didn't come this far to stall out now. Darnell looked around the room, seeing the determination on their faces. All right, he said, feeling a mix of anxiety and excitement. I'll look into it, but we have to be smart about this. No unnecessary risks, no cutting corners. The next morning, Darnell went to meet with a loan officer at the local credit union. He was nervous. This wasn't just about fixing cars. This was about the future of their business, their dream. The loan officer, a middle-aged woman with a sharp suit and kind eyes, listened carefully as Darnell explained their situation. You've built a good reputation in a short amount of time, she said thoughtfully, flipping through his application. But it's a tough business, and we need to be sure you have a solid plan for growth. Darnell nodded. We know the risks, he replied, but we've also shown that we can handle them. We just need the chance to take this to the next level. The officer looked at him for a long moment before finally saying, All right, Mr. Lewis, I'll approve the loan, but on one condition. You'll need to provide monthly financial statements and show consistent growth. Darnell felt a wave of relief wash over him. Thank you, he said, shaking her hand. We won't let you down. With the loan secured, they moved quickly to expand. They rented the empty lot next door, installed a second lift, and purchased newer, more efficient tools. The extra space allowed them to take on more cars, and the new equipment made their work faster and more efficient. The shop buzzed with activity, and the mood was optimistic. But with the expansion came new responsibilities. There were more bills to pay, more employees to hire, and more management tasks that took Darnell away from the garage floor, where he felt most at home. He found himself buried in paperwork, balancing the books, managing schedules, and dealing with the endless stream of challenges that came with running a growing business. One day, as he was going over the numbers in his small office, Carmen walked in. "You okay?" she asked, noticing the strain on his face. Darnell sighed. "Just trying to make sure we're staying on track," he said. "It's a lot." Carmen nodded. "You don't have to do it all alone, you know. We're in this together." Darnell smiled, appreciating her support. "I know," he replied, "but I just want to make sure we don't mess this up. We've got something good here, and I don't want to lose it." Carmen placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We won't," she said firmly. "We've come this far because we've stuck together. We just need to keep doing that, and we'll be okay." Darnell nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. He knew there were more challenges ahead, but he also knew they had built something special. Davis Auto Repair was more than just a business. It was a symbol of their resilience, their hard work, and their commitment to each other and their community. The following months at Davis Auto Repair were a whirlwind. With the new lot and equipment, the shop was busier than ever. The sound of impact wrenches, the hum of the air compressor, and the occasional laughter of the team became the soundtrack of their days. Business was booming, and for the first time since they had started, things felt steady. Darnell could hardly believe how far they had come. Customers were coming in, not just because they needed their cars fixed, but because they trusted Davis Auto Repair. The article in the local newspaper had done wonders for their reputation, and they had become known for their honesty and quality of work. Even the loan officer from the credit union who had approved their expansion stopped by with her car for a checkup. "I wanted to see for myself what all the fuss was about," she joked, and left satisfied with their service. But Darnell knew better than to get too comfortable. He had been around long enough to understand that just when things seemed calm, that's when trouble could sneak up on you. He was always on edge, always waiting for the next challenge. One afternoon, a new customer walked in. She was a well-dressed woman in her late 40s, with a sharp gaze and a confident stride. "Hello?" she said, extending a hand. "I'm Claire Holloway." And he had to be ready. They all had to be ready for whatever came next. Davis Auto Repair was thriving, and Darnell began to feel a cautious optimism creeping in. With each passing week, they gained more customers, more respect, and more confidence. But as the shop grew busier, so did Darnell's responsibilities. The days were long, the challenges constant, but there was a sense of accomplishment in every car that left the shop running better than when it came in. One morning, as the team was settling in for another day, Carmen walked into the shop with a worried look on her face. "Darnell!" she called out. "You need to see this." Darnell wiped his hands on a rag and followed her to the office. Carmen opened a laptop and showed him an email that had just come in. It was from Greg, their former boss at Greg's Auto Repair. "What does he want now?" Darnell muttered, leaning over to read. The email was short and to the point. To Darnell Lewis, Davis Auto Repair. "I hear you're doing well. Enjoy it while you can. Things are about to change." Greg Darnell frowned. "What's he playing at?" he asked, more to himself than to Carmen. Carmen shook her head. "I don't know, but it doesn't sound good. Maybe he's just trying to rattle us." Darnell nodded, trying to dismiss the unease growing in his chest. "Yeah, probably. We'll just keep doing what we're doing. We've got nothing to worry about from him." But the feeling of unease didn't go away. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. A few regular customers called to cancel their appointments, saying they had heard rumors that Davis Auto Repair was having trouble with quality. When Darnell asked them where they'd heard that, they were vague, mentioning word on the street or someone at another shop. The phone started ringing less, and the foot traffic slowed. Darnell could sense the tension in the air as the team noticed the shift. "Something's up," Javier said one afternoon. "We were packed last week, and now it's like someone flipped a switch." Carmen, always the investigator, did some digging. She returned later that day with a grim expression. "I asked around," she said. "Greg's been bad-mouthing us to anyone who will listen. He's telling people we're cutting corners, doing shoddy work, and that we're not insured." Darnell's jaw tightened. "That son of a—" He caught himself, taking a deep breath. "He's trying to destroy us. He can't stand that we're doing better than he is." Reggie chimed in. "What are we gonna do, Darnell? If people start believing this crap, we could lose everything we've built." Darnell thought for a moment, feeling the anger simmer in his chest. "We don't stoop to his level, that's what we do," he said finally. "We fight back the right way, by proving him wrong." The next day, Darnell gathered the team. "Here's the plan," he said. "We double down on our customer service. We're going to go above and beyond for every single person who walks through that door. We're going to make sure every car leaves here in perfect condition, and we're going to let our work speak for itself." They agreed, and from that moment on, they poured themselves into their jobs with renewed vigor. They took extra care to explain every repair in detail to their customers, offering complimentary checks and discounts for repeat clients. They stayed late, worked weekends, and made sure every customer felt valued. Carmen suggested they reach out to their loyal customers and ask them to spread the word about their positive experiences. "We've got plenty of people who love our work," she said. "Let's remind them why they chose us in the first place." Darnell agreed, and they crafted a message to send to their regulars, thanking them for their support and asking them to leave honest reviews online or share their experiences with friends and family. The response was immediate. Customers who had been with them from the beginning flooded social media with praise, recounting stories of how Davis Auto Repair had helped them in a pinch, been transparent about costs, and provided excellent service. The positive reviews started to drown out the negative rumors Greg had spread, but the battle was far from over. One afternoon, a man in a suit walked into the shop with a clipboard in hand. He introduced himself as an inspector from the local regulatory board. "We've received a complaint about this shop," he said in a formal tone. "I'm here to conduct a thorough inspection." Darnell's heart sank. He knew this was Greg's doing. "A complaint?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "What kind of complaint?" The inspector glanced at his clipboard. "Claims of substandard work, improper handling of hazardous materials, and operating without proper insurance." Darnell felt a mix of anger and fear, but forced himself to remain composed. "You're welcome to inspect anything you want," he said. "We run a clean shop, and we have all the proper permits. And insurance. You won't find anything wrong here." The inspector nodded and began his work, moving through the shop with a meticulous eye. The team watched nervously, knowing that even a small infraction could mean fines, delays, or worse. They had fought too hard to let Greg's petty schemes bring them down now. Hours passed as the inspector checked every corner of the shop, reviewing paperwork, asking questions, and making notes. Finally, he finished and returned to Darnell. "Well," he said, "everything seems to be in order. I don't see any issues here. You'll receive an official report in the mail, but as far as I'm concerned, you're all good." Darnell let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Thank you," he said, trying to keep the relief out of his voice. "We've always run an honest business here." The inspector nodded, almost sympathetically. "Seems like someone's trying to cause you trouble," he remarked. "Just keep doing what you're doing, and you'll be fine." As the inspector left, the team gathered around, a sense of victory in the air. "We passed," Javier said with a grin. "We're still in business." Darnell smiled, but his mind was already racing. He knew this wasn't over. Greg wasn't the type to give up easily, and he would likely try something else soon. "We won this round," he said, but we have to stay sharp. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. Over the next few weeks, they kept their guard up, working harder than ever to maintain their reputation and keep their customers happy. And slowly, things began to stabilize again. The calls picked up, the shop was busy, and the fear that had settled in their stomachs started to fade. One evening, as they were locking up, Carmen turned to Darnell. "Do you think Greg's done?" she asked. Darnell shook his head. "No," he said honestly. "But it doesn't matter. We've faced worse than him, and we've made it through. We'll handle whatever he throws our way." And as the team headed home, tired but unbroken, they knew that no matter what happened, they would face it together. For now, the storm had passed, but they were ready for whatever lay ahead. Things at Davis Auto Repair started to return to normal after the inspector's visit. The team's commitment to quality service and customer care was paying off, and the negative rumors Greg had tried to spread were losing steam. Customers were coming back, and the phones were ringing again. But even as they settled back into their routine, Darnell knew that they couldn't let their guard down. Greg might have backed off for now, but he was sure that his former boss wasn't finished trying to disrupt their success. One afternoon, Darnell received an unexpected call. The voice on the other end was friendly and professional, introducing himself as Marcus Thompson, a representative from Westwood Auto Mall, the biggest car dealership in the city. "Hi, Mr. Lewis," Marcus began. "I've heard great things about your shop. I'd like to meet with you to discuss a potential partnership. Are you available tomorrow morning?" Darnell was taken aback. Westwood Auto Mall was a major player in the city's automotive scene, known for selling and servicing hundreds of cars a month. A partnership with them could open doors he hadn't even considered. "Sure, I'm available," Darnell replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'd love to hear more about it." The next morning, Darnell met Marcus in the sleek, glass-walled office of Westwood Auto Mall. Marcus, a well-dressed man in his mid-30s, welcomed him with a firm handshake and a warm smile. "Thanks for coming, Darnell. I've been following your story, and I have to say, I'm impressed with what you've built over at Davis Auto Repair." Darnell nodded, still unsure of what to expect. "Thank you," he replied. "We've worked hard to get where we are." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "We're always looking for ways to enhance our customer service and provide more value. We've been thinking about partnering with a local repair shop to handle overflow maintenance and repair work. Our service department is at capacity, and we believe a collaboration with a shop like yours could benefit both of us." Darnell's mind raced as he processed what Marcus was saying. This could be huge for Davis Auto Repair. A steady stream of work from a reputable dealership would provide them with stability and growth opportunities. But he also knew there could be risks. "I'm interested," Darnell said cautiously. "But what exactly would this partnership involve?" Marcus explained. "We'd like to refer our customers to your shop for certain types of repairs: oil changes, brake services, diagnostics, and more complex mechanical work. In return, we'd expect a small commission on each job. And of course, we'd like to ensure that our customers receive top-notch service." Darnell nodded. "That sounds fair. We're committed to quality, and we'd make sure your customers are taken care of just like our own." Marcus continued. "We'd also want to feature Davis Auto Repair as our exclusive partner on our website and in our marketing materials. It would raise your profile and help drive more business your way. It's a win-win." Darnell felt a surge of excitement. This was an incredible opportunity to expand their customer base and build their reputation even further. But he was also cautious. "I like the idea," he said slowly, "but I'll need to discuss it with my team. We're a small shop, and I want to make sure we can handle the additional workload without compromising our quality." Marcus nodded understandingly. "Of course. Take your time. We want this to be a partnership that benefits both of us. Let me know when you've made a decision." Darnell thanked Marcus and left the meeting, his mind buzzing with possibilities. As he drove back to the shop, He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This could be the big break they needed, but it could also overwhelm them if they weren't prepared. Back at the shop, Darnell called a team meeting. Carmen, Javier, Reggie, and Luis gathered around, sensing that something was up. "I just got back from a meeting with Marcus Thompson over at Westwood Auto Mall," Darnell began. "They want to partner with us to handle some of their repair work." Reggie's eyes widened. "Westwood? That's big, man. What's the catch?" "No catch, really," Darnell replied. "They want to send us customers for certain types of work. In return, we pay them a small commission on each job. They'd also promote us as their exclusive repair partner, which could bring in a lot more business." Carmen looked thoughtful. "It sounds like a great opportunity, but we'd have to be careful. We're already stretched pretty thin. Can we handle that kind of volume without hiring more people or getting more equipment?" Darnell nodded. "That's my concern too. We'd need to plan carefully, but it could help us grow faster than we ever imagined." Javier leaned back in his chair, grinning. "I say we go for it. This could put us on the map for real. We can figure out the rest as we go." Luis agreed. "Yeah, I think we can handle it. We're already working hard, and we've proven we can take on big challenges." Reggie, always the cautious voice, spoke up. "I like the idea, but we need to make sure we don't get in over our heads. Maybe we could start with a trial period. See how it goes before committing long-term." Darnell nodded, appreciating the balance of enthusiasm and caution. "That's a good idea, Reggie. I'll talk to Marcus and see if they're open to a trial partnership. That way we can test the waters without diving in too deep." The next day, Darnell called Marcus and proposed the idea of a trial period. Marcus was receptive. "I think that's a smart move," he said. "Let's try it for 3 months and see how it works for both of us." Darnell agreed, feeling a sense of relief. This way, they could evaluate the impact on their workload and make adjustments as needed. They signed the agreement and the partnership officially began. Almost immediately, the referrals started coming in. At first, it was a slow trickle, just a few cars a day. But within a couple of weeks, the volume increased. The shop was busier than ever, and the team found themselves juggling multiple jobs at once. It was hectic, and there were days when they felt overwhelmed, but they managed to keep up, thanks to their determination and teamwork. Carmen took on the role of managing the schedule, making sure that every job was completed on time and that no customer was left waiting too long. Reggie stepped up to handle the more complex diagnostics, while Javier and Luis worked on routine maintenance and repairs. Darnell floated between the garage and the office, overseeing everything and pitching in wherever he was needed. The partnership with Westwood was starting to pay off. The shop's reputation continued to grow, and they began attracting customers from outside their usual area. But it wasn't without challenges. There were days when tempers flared, mistakes were made, and the pressure felt like it might crush them. Yet every night, they closed the shop, knowing they had done their best. One afternoon, Marcus stopped by to check in. "How's everything going?" he asked, a smile on his face. Darnell wiped the sweat from his brow and nodded. "It's been intense," he admitted, "but we're managing. Your referrals have been a game changer for us." Marcus seemed pleased. "Glad to hear it. We've had great feedback from our customers. They're impressed with your work and your service. I think this could be the start of something really special." Darnell felt a sense of pride swelling in his chest. "We're glad to hear that," he replied. "We'll keep doing our best to make sure it stays that way." As Marcus left, Darnell turned to the team. "We've still got a long way to go, but we're making it happen," he said. "Let's keep pushing, keep proving ourselves. We're on the right track." And for the first time in a long while, Darnell felt that maybe, just maybe, they were finally getting ahead. But he also knew they needed to stay focused and be ready for whatever came next. After all, they had come too far to let anything slow them down now. The partnership with Westwood Auto Mall had been a major boost for Davis Auto Repair. Business was better than ever, and the shop was bustling with activity from morning till night. The team had settled into a rhythm, each member taking on their roles with renewed purpose. Yet, as the workload increased, so did the strain on everyone. Darnell began to notice small cracks forming under the surface. Reggie seemed more irritable, often snapping at Javier or Luis when a tool wasn't where it was supposed to be. Carmen was doing her best to keep the schedule tight, but even she looked more tired than usual, dark circles forming under her eyes. And while Darnell tried to stay positive, he was feeling the weight of leadership more than ever. One morning, Carmen approached Darnell as he was going over some invoices. "We've got a problem," she said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. Darnell looked up, concern etched on his face. "What is it?" Carmen hesitated, then continued. "We've got a backlog of jobs. More than we can handle with our current crew. I've been doing my best to keep things on track, but we're at a breaking point. Customers are starting to get impatient, and I'm worried that if we don't figure something out, we're going to start losing them." Darnell felt his stomach tighten. "We're already working overtime," he said, rubbing his temples. "I don't want to burn everyone out, but we can't afford to turn down work either." Carmen nodded. "I know, but we need more hands if we're going to keep up with this volume. Maybe it's time to think about hiring someone new." Darnell sighed. They had discussed the possibility of hiring another mechanic before, but it was a tough decision. Bringing someone new on board meant another salary to pay, more training, and more potential for mistakes. But he also knew Carmen was right. They couldn't keep pushing the team this hard forever. "All right," Darnell said finally. "Let's put out the word and see if we can find someone who fits. But we've got to be careful. We need someone who understands how we do things here, someone we can trust." Carmen agreed, and they set about drafting a job posting. Within days, they started receiving applications, and soon they were interviewing candidates. Most were either too inexperienced or didn't seem like a good fit for their tight-knit team. But then a young mechanic named Andre walked in for an interview. Andre was in his early 30s, with a strong build and a quiet confidence about him. He had been working at a high-end dealership on the other side of town, but was looking for something different, somewhere he could grow and feel like part of a team. "I've heard good things about Davis Auto Repair," Andre said during the interview. "I like that you're all about quality and honesty. That's what I'm looking for, too." Darnell looked him over, impressed by his straightforward demeanor. "We've built this shop from the ground up," he replied. "It's not always easy, but we've got a good thing going here. We take care of each other and our customers. If you're willing to work hard and be part of that, you're welcome to join us." Andre nodded. "I'm ready to work," he said simply. After some discussion, the team decided to give Andre a shot. His first few days went well. He picked up the pace quickly and showed a strong understanding of the work. He had a knack for diagnosing tricky problems and wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. The team began to feel like they were catching up on their backlog, and the atmosphere lightened a bit. But not everyone was happy with the new addition. Reggie, who had been at Davis Auto Repair since day one, seemed more agitated than ever. He watched Andre closely, muttering under his breath whenever Andre made a small mistake or asked a question. One afternoon, as they were working side by side on a particularly stubborn engine, Reggie finally snapped. "Damn it, Andre. That's not how you do it," he shouted, his voice louder than anyone had ever heard. "You've got to use the right wrench or you're going to strip the bolt." Andre paused, taken aback. "I was just trying to—" "Trying isn't good enough." Reggie cut him off, slamming his wrench down on the workbench. "We don't have time for you to learn on the job. We've got customers waiting and we don't need you slowing us down." The shop fell silent, everyone turning to watch the confrontation. Darnell, sensing things were about to escalate, stepped in. "Hey, Reggie, take it easy," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Andre's doing fine. We're all still figuring things out." Reggie turned to Darnell, his face red with frustration. We don't need more people figuring things out, Darnell. We need to get these cars done. We're already behind, and now we're slowing down even more. Darnell felt the tension rising in his own chest, but kept his tone steady. I get it, Reggie. We're all feeling the pressure. But Andre's part of this team now, and we've got to work together. No one's perfect, not even you. Reggie scoffed and stormed off, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Andre looked down, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't mean to cause any trouble, he mumbled. Darnell placed a hand on his shoulder. You're not causing trouble, Andre. We're just all feeling the strain right now. Don't take it personally. Andre nodded, but the tension in the shop was palpable. For the rest of the day, everyone worked in strained silence, the camaraderie they had fought so hard to build suddenly feeling fragile. That evening, Darnell called Reggie into his office. What's going on, man? He asked quietly. You're one of the best mechanics here, but you've been on edge lately. Is there something you want to talk about? Reggie sighed, running a hand over his face. I'm just tired, Darnell, he admitted. We've been pushing so hard, and I feel like I'm carrying more than my share. And now we've got this new guy, and it feels like he's slowing us down. Darnell nodded, understanding. I know it's been tough, but Andre's here to help, not make things harder. We've got to give him a chance to find his footing. And we've got to support each other, not tear each other down. Reggie leaned back, his shoulders slumping. I'm just worried, you know. We've got a lot riding on this place. I don't want to see us fail. Darnell smiled, appreciating his friend's honesty. I get it. But we're not going to fail, Reggie. We've made it this far, and we're going to keep going. We just need to stay focused and remember why we're doing this. For each other, for our customers, and for the community. We've got something special here, and we can't let the pressure tear us apart. Reggie nodded, the tension in his face softening. You're right, Darnell. I'll try to be better. The next day, Reggie made a visible effort to be more patient with Andre, explaining things more calmly and working alongside him without snapping. The team seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief, grateful for the shift in energy. But Darnell knew that this was just one challenge among many. The pressure of growth was real, and he had to find a way to keep the team motivated and united. As they closed up shop that night, he couldn't help but wonder if they were prepared for whatever lay ahead. They had weathered storms before, but he sensed there were more trials to come, ones that would test their strength, their unity, and their commitment to each other. A few weeks after hiring Andre, things began to feel more balanced at Davis Auto Repair. Reggie had adjusted to working with the new guy, and the team seemed to be hitting their stride again. The partnership with Westwood Auto Mall was proving beneficial. Their shop was now the go-to place for dealership customers needing reliable repairs. They were getting positive feedback, and the steady stream of work was keeping the bills paid and morale high. But just when it seemed like they had found their groove, a new challenge emerged. One afternoon, Carmen walked into the shop with a stack of papers in her hand and a worried expression on her face. You're not going to like this, she said, handing the papers to Darnell. Darnell took them and started reading. They were flyers, glossy, professionally printed, with bold letters at the top that read, Grand Opening, Elite Auto Service, Quality Repairs at Affordable Prices. He frowned. What is this? Carmen sighed. It's a new shop opening a few blocks away. I heard about it this morning from a customer. They're offering big discounts on all repairs for the first month and free diagnostics. Darnell felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Who's behind this? He asked, already fearing the answer. Greg, Carmen replied. He's opening up a new shop under a different name. Looks like he's trying to undercut us and pull our customers away. Darnell slammed the papers down on the workbench, anger flaring. Of course he is, he muttered. I knew he wasn't done trying to sabotage us. Reggie, who had been listening nearby, shook his head. What's his problem, man? Why can't he just let it go? Because he can't stand that we left and succeeded, Darnell said. He's been looking for a way to get back at us since the day we walked out. And now he's coming for us directly. The news spread quickly around the shop, and the team gathered in the break room to talk it over. "This is bad," Javier said, worry in his voice. "If he's offering lower prices, people might go to him instead." Carmen nodded. "Especially with this economy. People are looking for any way to save money." Andre, still getting his bearings with the team, spoke up. "So what do we do? Fight fire with fire? Drop our prices?" Darnell shook his head. "No, we don't play his game. We can't afford to get into a price war. We don't have the resources he does, and we'd end up cutting into our own profits too deep. We stick to what we know: quality work, honest service. That's what got us here, and that's what's going to keep us here." Luis chimed in. "But we can't just sit back and do nothing. We need to find a way to show people why we're different." Carmen snapped her fingers. "What if we host a community event?" she suggested. "Something that shows we're more than just a business. We could offer free car safety checks, maybe even some basic workshops on car maintenance. Show people that we care about them, not just their money." Darnell considered the idea and nodded slowly. "I like it. It's a way to build goodwill, show we're part of the community, and remind people why they trust us." The team got to work planning the event. They decided on a Customer Appreciation Day and set a date for 2 weekends ahead. They reached out to local businesses for sponsorships and partnerships, offering to cross-promote with anyone willing to participate. A local bakery agreed to provide free pastries and coffee. A nearby hardware store offered to donate some car maintenance kits for a raffle, and the credit union that had helped them with their loan agreed to set up a booth to promote financial services. The response from the community was encouraging. They printed flyers and spread the word through social media, encouraging their customers to come out and bring their families. Carmen and Andre took on the task of organizing the car safety checks, while Javier and Reggie prepared for the maintenance workshops. Darnell worked on getting everything coordinated and making sure they had enough supplies and volunteers. The day of the event arrived, and the team felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. They set up tables outside the shop, decorated with balloons and banners, and waited for people to arrive. To their relief, it wasn't long before the first few customers started trickling in. Soon, the event was in full swing. Carmen and Andre were busy performing safety checks on cars, chatting with customers and answering their questions. Reggie and Javier demonstrated basic car maintenance, showing attendees how to change a tire, check oil levels, and replace air filters. There was a steady stream of people milling around, enjoying the free refreshments and learning more about their vehicles. Darnell stood at the entrance, greeting everyone who walked in, feeling a renewed sense of pride in what they were doing. "Thanks for coming," he said to each person with a smile. "We appreciate your support." Around midday, Marcus from Westwood Auto Mall stopped by. "This is great, Darnell," he said, looking around at the crowd. "It's good to see a business doing more than just chasing profits." Darnell smiled. "We've always believed in taking care of our customers and our community. It's what sets us apart." As the day went on, the turnout exceeded their expectations. Customers brought their friends, neighbors stopped by out of curiosity, and kids enjoyed the free snacks and balloons. By the end of the day, Darnell was exhausted but exhilarated. They had given away dozens of car care kits, performed countless safety checks, and handed out information about their services. But most importantly, they had reminded people who they were, a local shop that cared about its community. Later that evening, as they cleaned up, Carmen turned to Darnell. "I think that went really well," she said, smiling. "People seem to appreciate it." Darnell nodded. "Yeah, I think we showed them what we're all about. We're not just here to take their money. We're here to help them." Reggie looked around, still wiping sweat from his brow. "I don't know if it'll stop Greg from pulling his tricks, but at least we know we're doing the right thing." Javier added, "And if people see that, they'll keep coming back to us. We've got something he can't fake. Trust. The following week, they noticed a renewed flow of customers. Some were familiar faces who thanked them for the event and the free services. Others were new, curious to see what Davis Auto Repair was all about. But then, a new problem arose. A customer walked in, holding one of Greg's flyers. "I heard he's saying you guys aren't certified to do certain repairs," the customer said, a hint of doubt in his voice. "Is that true?" Darnell felt his frustration bubble up again. "No, sir," he replied calmly. "We're fully certified for every type of repair we offer. Greg's just trying to spread misinformation to hurt our business." The customer nodded, looking somewhat reassured. "I figured as much. Just wanted to hear it from you directly." That night, as they closed up the shop, Darnell gathered the team. "We did great with the event," he began, "but Greg's not going to stop. He's coming at us with every trick in the book. Lies, undercutting prices, spreading rumors. We've got to stay sharp and be ready to respond." Carmen nodded. "I say we keep doubling down on what we do best. Keep proving ourselves every day, one customer at a time." Andre agreed. "We've shown we're more than just a shop. Let's keep building on that." Reggie, still a bit skeptical, spoke up. "And if he pushes harder? What then?" Darnell paused for a moment, thinking about all they had been through. "Then we push back with everything we've got," he said finally. "We've got something real here, something worth fighting for, and we're not going to let him take that away from us." As the team dispersed for the night, Darnell stood alone in the shop, the quiet settling around him. He knew they were in for a tough fight, but he also knew they had built something special, and as long as they kept their heads up and stuck together, they had a chance. The days that followed their Customer Appreciation Day were a mixture of success and tension for Davis Auto Repair. The event had brought in a fresh wave of customers, many of whom expressed appreciation for the community-focused approach. But despite the positive turnout, the shadow of Greg's new shop, Elite Auto Service, loomed large over their success. Elite Auto Service was aggressively advertising in every local paper, on radio stations, and all over social media. Their strategy was clear: undercut Davis Auto Repair at every turn. They offered discounts on all types of repairs, threw in freebies, and even promised to beat any competitor's price. It wasn't long before some of Davis Auto Repair's customers started drifting over to Greg's shop, lured by the promise of cheaper deals. One afternoon, Darnell was working under the hood of an old Buick when Carmen approached him, her face tight with worry. "Darnell, you need to see this," she said, holding up her phone. Darnell wiped his hands on his coveralls and took the phone. It was a post on the local neighborhood forum with the headline, "Davis Auto Repair or Elite Auto Service? Who's better?" The thread was filled with comments comparing the two shops, some supportive of Davis Auto Repair, but others complaining about their prices, praising Elite's cheaper offers, and speculating about the rumors Greg had spread. Darnell's face hardened as he scrolled through the comments. "He's getting to people," he muttered. "The discounts, the lies. It's starting to work." Carmen sighed. "Yeah, and if we don't do something soon, we could lose more customers." Darnell felt the weight of the situation bearing down on him. "I'm not dropping our prices," he said firmly. "We can't afford to play that game, but maybe we need to remind people why our prices are what they are. Quality work, done right the first time, no shortcuts, no scams." Javier, overhearing the conversation, chimed in, "Maybe we should lean into that. What if we start showing people what goes on behind the scenes, how we inspect every part, how we double-check every repair?" Carmen's eyes lit up. "That's not a bad idea. We could do videos, show the process, the care we take. Let people see what they're paying for." Andre added, "And we could share stories of satisfied customers, testimonials, things like that. Let our real customers speak for us." Darnell nodded, feeling a spark of hope. "Okay, let's do it. Let's pull back the curtain and show them who we really are." Over the next few days, the team started creating content for their website and social media. Carmen recorded videos of Darnell explaining different repair processes, talking through safety checks, and highlighting the attention to detail that set them apart. They interviewed satisfied customers who shared stories of how Davis Auto Repair had saved them time and money with honest, reliable service. Javier took photos of the team hard at work. Reggie carefully aligning tires, Andre diagnosing a tricky engine problem, and Carmen running diagnostics with the precision of a surgeon. The posts began circulating, and to their surprise, people responded positively. Comments started to trickle in. "I've been going to Davis Auto for years and wouldn't trust anyone else. Great to see a shop that really cares about its customers." But Greg wasn't done yet. One morning, a man in a suit walked into the shop, carrying a stack of papers. He introduced himself as a lawyer representing Greg. "I'm here to deliver a cease and desist order," he announced. "Mr. Greg Daniels is claiming you've been engaging in defamatory practices against his business." Darnell took the papers, his heart pounding. "Defamation?" he asked incredulously. "We haven't said a word about his shop." The lawyer gave a thin smile. "He's alleging that your social media posts indirectly disparage his business, and he's curious." "I'm listening," Carmen continued. "I've been in touch with a friend who works at a local news station. She mentioned they're looking for human interest stories about local businesses that are making a difference in the community. I told her a bit about what we've been going through, and she seemed really interested. She thinks it could make for a great piece." Darnell's eyes widened. "You think they'd want to cover our story? I mean, really cover it?" Carmen nodded. "Yes. I think we've got a compelling story. A group of mechanics who stood up against unfair treatment, started their own business, and are now fighting to stay afloat against a competitor who's trying to run them out of town. It's the kind of story people care about." Darnell felt a flicker of hope. "This could be huge for us," he said slowly. "But we'd have to be careful. Greg's going to see this as an attack, and he might push back even harder." Carmen nodded in agreement. "I know, but I think it's worth the risk. We've got nothing to hide, and we're proud of what we've built here. Why not tell people our side of the story?" Darnell sat back, weighing the decision. It was risky, but they needed something to change the narrative. "All right," he said finally. "Let's do it. Reach out to your friend and see if we can set up a meeting." A few days later, a news crew arrived at Davis Auto Repair. The team was both excited and nervous, but they knew this was their chance to tell their story. The reporter, a woman named Lisa Chen, had a warm, engaging presence. She asked questions about their journey, the challenges they'd faced, and what made them different from other shops. "We're more than just mechanics," Darnell explained to Lisa as the cameras rolled. "We're a family. We believe in treating people right, doing honest work, and giving back to the community. We started this shop because we wanted to create something better, something fair. And we're not going to let anyone take that away from us." Lisa nodded, clearly impressed. "And what do you say to the rumors that have been spread about your shop? That you're not certified? That your work isn't up to standard?" Darnell smiled, though he felt a flicker of frustration. "We say they're just that, rumors. We're fully certified, our work speaks for itself, and we've got a loyal customer base who knows that. We invite anyone who has doubts to come see for themselves." The crew spent the afternoon filming, capturing shots of the team at work, the customers coming and going, and the camaraderie that filled the air. They interviewed a few regulars who spoke passionately about their trust in Davis Auto Repair and the respect they felt as customers. As the crew packed up, Lisa turned to Darnell. "This is going to be a great story," she said. "I think people will connect with what you're doing here." Darnell thanked her, feeling a mix of nerves and hope. "We appreciate the opportunity, Lisa. We just want people to know the truth." The next day, the story aired on the local news. The piece was titled, "David versus Goliath." Goliath. Local mechanics take on corporate competition, and it painted Davis Auto Repair as the underdog standing up against unfair competition. It highlighted their community-focused values, their dedication to honest work, and their resilience in the face of adversity. Almost immediately, the phones began ringing. People called to offer their support, schedule appointments, and express their admiration. "I saw you on the news last night," one woman said. "I love what you're doing here. I want to bring my car in for service." Social media lit up with messages of encouragement. Customers posted photos of their cars at Davis Auto Repair, tagging the shop and praising their experiences. The positive attention felt like a wave of fresh air sweeping through the shop, lifting everyone's spirits. But the news story also stirred up more trouble. Greg's lawyer called again, threatening another lawsuit, this time for defamation, claiming the news piece had damaged his business. Darnell felt a familiar surge of anger but refused to be intimidated. "We didn't lie," he said to the lawyer. "We told our story. If Greg has a problem with that, he can take it up with the news station." The lawyer blustered, but there was little he could do. The station stood by their story, and Greg's threats began to lose their sting. Over the next few weeks, business at Davis Auto Repair picked up even more. New customers streamed in, many of them saying they were there because they admired what the shop stood for. Darnell and his team worked harder than ever, but this time with a renewed sense of purpose. The community was behind them, and they weren't alone. One evening, as they closed up for the day, a local city council member stopped by. "I just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate what you're doing," she said. "We need more businesses like yours in our community. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know." Darnell smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "Thank you," he replied. "We're just trying to do the right thing." The council member nodded. "And you are. Keep it up." As the team gathered in the break room, they felt a sense of triumph. For the first time in months, it seemed like they were gaining the upper hand. "We're doing it," Carmen said with a grin. "We're actually doing it." Darnell nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Yeah, we are. But we've got to stay focused. Greg's not going to stop, and we can't afford to let our guard down." Reggie leaned back in his chair, a relaxed smile on his face. "We've faced worse. As long as we stick together, we've got this." Andre raised his soda can in a mock toast. "To Davis Auto Repair," he said, "to standing strong and staying true." The others lifted their drinks, clinking them together with a shared sense of accomplishment. For now, at least, they had weathered the storm. They had told their story, stood their ground, and come out stronger on the other side. Darnell knew they still had a long road ahead, but he also knew they had something special, something no one could take away. They were more than just a shop. They were a testament to the power of perseverance, integrity, and community. And no matter what came next, they would face it together, one day at a time. With the recent surge in business, Davis Auto Repair was busier than ever. Customers kept coming, appointments were fully booked weeks in advance, and the team was constantly on their feet. The publicity from the news story had done wonders to bolster their reputation, and for the first time in a long while, things felt hopeful. But as they continued to ride this wave of success, Darnell knew better than to let his guard down. One afternoon, as Darnell was in his office catching up on paperwork, Carmen burst in, her face flushed with worry. "Darnell, you need to come out here," she said quickly. Darnell stood up, his heart pounding. "What is it?" Carmen handed him her phone. On the screen was a series of messages from several customers. They were complaining about strange phone calls they'd received, calls from someone claiming to be from Davis Auto Repair. The caller had told them their cars needed additional repairs, ones they hadn't approved, and demanded immediate payment over the phone. "What the hell?" Darnell muttered, reading through the messages. "We've never called anyone asking for payments like this." Carmen nodded. "I know. That's why it's so weird. It's not us. But whoever is doing this is using our name. Darnell's stomach tightened. He knew immediately who was behind it. It has to be Greg, he said through gritted teeth. This is his way of hitting back. He's trying to sabotage us by making us look like scammers. As they spoke, the shop phone began to ring. Carmen answered and quickly put it on speaker. Davis Auto Repair, this is Carmen. How can I help you? The voice on the other end was irate. I just got a call from someone at your shop telling me I owe $300 for repairs I never authorized. What kind of scam are you running? Darnell quickly took over. Sir, I'm very sorry for the confusion, but we've never called you about any payment. Someone is pretending to be us. Please don't give any information over the phone. The customer's voice softened a little, but he was still wary. I hope you're telling the truth, because if I get another call like this, I'm taking my business elsewhere. After the call, Darnell turned to Carmen, his jaw clenched. We need to get in front of this fast. We can't afford for people to think we're scamming them. They called an emergency meeting with the team. We've got a problem, Darnell began, explaining the situation. Greg's stepping up his game. He's trying to destroy our reputation by impersonating us and scamming our customers. We need to let people know what's going on before it gets out of hand. Andre shook his head, frustrated. How do we stop him from doing this? He's got nothing to lose and everything to gain by making us look bad. Javier added, we should post a warning on our website and social media, explaining the scam and letting customers know we'll never ask for payments over the phone. Carmen agreed. And we should reach out to everyone on our customer list, send them emails, and make direct calls to explain what's happening. Darnell nodded. Good idea. Let's get started on that right away. And we should probably report this to the police too. Maybe they can track the calls or do something to stop him. They got to work immediately. Carmen started drafting the social media posts and website updates, while Javier and Andre began calling customers directly to explain the situation. Reggie went through their client list to prepare an email blast, and Darnell called the local police department to file a report the next few days. Were tense. Customers were confused and suspicious, and many called or came in to verify what they had been told over the phone. The team was constantly fielding calls, reassuring clients, and trying to contain the damage. It was exhausting, and Darnell could feel the strain building on everyone's faces. Then, just when things seemed to be stabilizing, a letter arrived at the shop from the Better Business Bureau. Darnell opened it and felt his heart sink. It was a notification that multiple complaints had been filed against Davis Auto Repair, alleging unethical practices and fraud. Darnell slammed the letter down on the counter, frustration boiling over. He's trying to bury us in complaints now, he said. He's playing dirty and it's working. Carmen read over the letter, her face pale. What do we do now? She asked quietly. Darnell thought for a moment, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. We fight back, he said finally. We contact every single customer who filed a complaint. We explain what's happening and try to get them to retract it. And we provide every bit of proof we have to the BBB to clear our name. The team got to work again, calling and emailing the customers who had filed complaints. It wasn't easy. Some were angry, others skeptical, but most were willing to listen. Slowly they began to turn the tide, convincing people that they were being targeted by a malicious competitor. One afternoon, Darnell received a call from Marcus at Westwood Auto Mall. I've heard what's been going on, Marcus said, his voice sympathetic. This is a dirty move, but I want you to know we're standing by you. We're going to send more referrals your way. Make sure people know who the real deal is. Darnell felt a surge of gratitude. Thanks, Marcus. We need all the help we can get right now. Marcus continued. I'm also thinking about getting in touch with some of our media contacts, seeing if we can get another story out there. A follow-up piece, maybe, to set the record straight and counter the damage. That would be incredible, Darnell replied. Anything that helps get the truth out there. That evening, Darnell called the team together again. "We're going to keep fighting," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Greg's pushing harder, but that just means we push back even harder. We've got support from the community, from Marcus, and from our customers. As long as we stick together and stay honest, we'll come out on top." Reggie, still worried but resolute, nodded. "We've come this far. I'm not backing down now." Carmen added, "We need to keep showing people who we are, every day, with every repair." "We let our work speak for itself," Andre agreed, "and we keep getting the word out. Let everyone know what's really going on. No more hiding." The team worked late into the night, making calls, writing emails, and updating their website and social media. They were tired, but they were fighting with everything they had. And slowly, it started to work. The complaints to the BBB began to get retracted. Customers who had been angry or confused started coming back, reassured by the team's transparency and honesty. And then, a few days later, they received some unexpected news. The local news station wanted to do a follow-up story on the scam and the challenges Davis Auto Repair was facing. Lisa Chen, the same reporter who had covered their story before, arrived at the shop with her crew. "This is unbelievable," she said to Darnell. "But it's also a story people need to hear. We're going to expose this for what it is, a dirty trick by a competitor who can't compete on quality." Darnell nodded, feeling a renewed sense of hope. "Thank you, Lisa. We just want people to know the truth." The second news piece aired a few days later, this time focusing on the scam calls, the false complaints, and the lengths to which Greg was going to destroy Davis Auto Repair. The community rallied behind them, and support started pouring in again. Customers left positive reviews online, praising the shop's integrity and transparency. The local paper even published an editorial condemning Greg's tactics and calling for support for small businesses like Davis Auto Repair. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. Darnell knew they still had a long fight ahead, but as he looked around at his team, tired but united, he felt a spark of hope. They had faced down every challenge so far, and they weren't about to give up now. "We're in this together," he said to the team, feeling a surge of determination. "No matter what Greg throws at us next, we're going to stand tall, because we're Davis Auto Repair, and we don't back down." With the follow-up news story exposing the scam, the tide seemed to turn once more in favor of Davis Auto Repair. Support from the community grew stronger, and customers who had been wary or misled by Greg's tactics began to return, often with words of encouragement. Were tense. Customers were confused and suspicious, and many called or came in to verify what they had been told over the phone. The team was constantly fielding calls, reassuring clients, and trying to contain the damage. It was exhausting, and Darnell could feel the strain building on everyone's faces. Then, just when things seemed to be stabilizing, a letter arrived at the shop from the Better Business Bureau. Darnell opened it and felt his heart sink. It was a notification that multiple complaints had been filed against Davis Auto Repair, alleging unethical practices and fraud. Darnell slammed the letter down on the counter, frustration boiling over. "He's trying to bury us in complaints now," he said. "He's playing dirty and it's working." Carmen read over the letter, her face pale. "What do we do now?" she asked quietly. Darnell thought for a moment, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "We fight back," he said finally. "We contact every single customer who filed a complaint. We explain what's happening and try to get them to retract it. And we provide every bit of proof we have to the BBB to clear our name." The team got to work again, calling and emailing the customers who had filed complaints. It wasn't easy. Some were angry, others skeptical, but most were willing to listen. Slowly they began to turn the tide, convincing people that they were being targeted by a malicious competitor. One afternoon, Darnell received a call from Marcus at Westwood Auto Mall. "I've heard what's been going on," Marcus said, his voice sympathetic. "This is a dirty move, but I want you to know we're standing by you. We're going to send more referrals your way. Make sure people know who the real deal is." Darnell felt a surge of gratitude. "Thanks, Marcus. We need all the help we can get right now." Marcus continued, "I'm also thinking about getting in touch with some of our media contacts, seeing if we can get another story out there. A follow-up piece, maybe, to set the record straight and counter the damage." "That would be incredible," Darnell replied. "Anything that helps get the truth out there." That evening, Darnell called the team together again. "We're going to keep fighting," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Greg's pushing harder, but that just means we push back even harder. We've got support from the community, from Marcus, and from our customers. As long as we stick together and stay honest, we'll come out on top." Reggie, still worried but resolute, nodded. "We've come this far. I'm not backing down now." Carmen added, "We need to keep showing people who we are, every day, with every repair." "We let our work speak for itself," Andre agreed, "and we keep getting the word out. Let everyone know what's really going on. No more hiding." The team worked late into the night, making calls, writing emails, and updating their website and social media. They were tired, but they were fighting with everything they had. And slowly, it started to work. The complaints to the BBB began to get retracted. Customers who had been angry or confused started coming back, reassured by the team's transparency and honesty. And then, a few days later, they received some unexpected news. The local news station wanted to do a follow-up story on the scam and the challenges Davis Auto Repair was facing. Lisa Chen, the same reporter who had covered their story before, arrived at the shop with her crew. "This is unbelievable," she said to Darnell. "But it's also a story people need to hear. We're going to expose this for what it is, a dirty trick by a competitor who can't compete on quality." Darnell nodded, feeling a renewed sense of hope. "Thank you, Lisa. We just want people to know the truth." The second news piece aired a few days later, this time focusing on the scam calls, the false complaints, and the lengths to which Greg was going to destroy Davis Auto Repair. The community rallied behind them, and support started pouring in again. Customers left positive reviews online, praising the shop's integrity and transparency. The local paper even published an editorial condemning Greg's tactics and calling for support for small businesses like Davis Auto Repair. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. Darnell knew they still had a long fight ahead, but as he looked around at his team, tired but united, he felt a spark of hope. They had faced down every challenge so far, and they weren't about to give up now. "We're in this together," he said to the team, feeling a surge of determination. "No matter what Greg throws at us next, we're going to stand tall, because we're Davis Auto Repair, and we don't back down." With the follow-up news story exposing the scam, the tide seemed to turn once more in favor of Davis Auto Repair. Support from the community grew stronger, and customers who had been wary or misled by Greg's tactics began to return, often with words of encouragement. Rallied together, discussing every angle, every potential outcome. When the day of the meeting arrived, Mr. Fuller came to the shop with a business associate and laid out the proposal. They talked about expanding Davis Auto Repair's reach, leveraging the franchise's resources, and creating new opportunities for growth. It was clear that Fuller saw potential in their story and their values. "We believe your shop represents something special," Mr. Fuller explained. "With our backing, you could open more locations, reach more customers, and provide more jobs in the community. We'd maintain your brand's unique identity while giving you the support you need to grow." Darnell listened carefully, asking questions, weighing the pros and cons. The offer was tempting. The thought of expanding their impact, reaching more people, and building a legacy was exciting. But he could also see the catch. There would be compromises, changes to how they operated, and less control over decisions. When Mr. Fuller finished, he leaned back, smiling. "Think about it," he said. We're offering you a chance to grow without having to fight every battle alone. Darnell nodded slowly. We appreciate the offer, he replied, but I need to talk this over with my team. This isn't a decision I can make on my own. Mr. Fuller agreed, and they shook hands. After he left, the team gathered in the break room once more. Darnell looked around at each of them, feeling the weight of the decision. So, what do we think? He asked. Reggie was the first to speak. I still don't like the idea of losing control. We've built this place with our own hands. If we join them, it might not feel like ours anymore. Carmen nodded. I agree with Reggie, but I also see the benefits. We've been fighting so hard just to survive. Maybe it's time we think about what it means to thrive. Andre chimed in. I think we need to ask ourselves what's most important. Is it growth, or is it staying true to who we are? Javier, always the practical one, said, we could try negotiating. See if there's a way to get the resources we need without giving up too much control. But if we do this, we need to be clear about what we won't compromise on. Darnell listened to each of them, feeling the depth of their commitment to the shop and to each other. Finally, he took a deep breath and spoke. I hear all of you, and I feel the same way. I want us to grow, but not at the cost of who we are. We've built something unique here, and I don't want to lose that. I think we should meet with Mr. Fuller again, lay out our terms, and see if they're willing to work with us on our own terms. But if they're not, we walk away. The team nodded, agreement settling in. Sounds good, Carmen said. At least this way, we're staying true to ourselves. A few days later, Darnell and the team met with Mr. Fuller again. They laid out their conditions. They would retain full control over operations, maintain their brand's identity, and make decisions that aligned with their values. Mr. Fuller listened carefully and nodded. I understand, he said. I'll need to discuss this with my partners, but I think we can make this work. A week passed, and they waited anxiously for a response. When Mr. Fuller finally called, Darnell felt his heart race. We've reviewed your terms, Mr. Fuller said, and while we respect your position, I'm afraid we can't agree to all of them. We wish you the best, but I don't think this partnership will be a fit. Darnell hung up and turned to the team, feeling a mix of disappointment and relief. They said no, he announced. But honestly, I think it's for the best. We don't need anyone else telling us how to run our shop. We're doing just fine on our own. The team nodded, smiles spreading across their faces. Good, Reggie said with a grin. We're better off without them. Carmen added, We've been through too much to let anyone else dictate who we are. We've got something special here, and we don't need a franchise to prove that. As the days went on, Davis Auto Repair continued to thrive, their commitment to quality, integrity, and community stronger than ever. The new mobile service was a hit, and their customer base kept growing. They remained vigilant, knowing Greg might still try something, but they also knew they were ready for whatever came next. One afternoon, a familiar face walked into the shop, Greg himself. Darnell felt a jolt of surprise as he watched his former boss approach, his expression hard to read. Darnell, Greg began, I just came to say, you win. I've tried everything to bring you down, and you're still here. You've got a hell of a team, and you've earned the respect of this community. Darnell nodded slowly, not quite sure where this was going. Why the change of heart, Greg? Greg sighed, looking tired. I've been running myself ragged trying to beat you, but I'm just tired. I can't keep doing this. I underestimated you, all of you. I thought I could crush you, but you're stronger than I gave you credit for. Darnell nodded, feeling a strange mix of emotions. We're not here to fight, Greg. We're just here to do what we love, serve our customers, and build something we're proud of. You don't have to be our enemy. Greg seemed to consider this, then gave a small, reluctant smile. Maybe not. Good luck, Darnell. You're doing something right here. As Greg turned to leave, the team watched in silence, When he was gone, Reggie let out a laugh. "Well, I didn't see that coming," he said. Darnell chuckled. "Me neither, but maybe it means we're finally getting through. Maybe we've won more than just a fight. Maybe we've won a little respect." Carmen smiled. "We've won more than that, Darnell. We've won our freedom, our future. We've shown everyone, including ourselves, that we're stronger together than we ever thought possible." Andre raised his soda can again, and this time it felt like more than a gesture. "To Davis Auto Repair," he said. "To standing strong, no matter what." The team clinked their cans and cups, feeling a deep sense of pride and camaraderie. They knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, but they were ready. They were stronger than ever, united by the trials they'd faced and the values they refused to compromise. Darnell looked around at his team, his family, and felt a warmth spread through his chest. They had built something real, something that mattered. They had faced down every threat, every challenge, and had come out stronger on the other side. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving, and as long as they stood together, nothing could tear them apart. Davis Auto Repair was here to stay, and they were ready for whatever the future held.